It's strange, isn't it? How you can live in a lie so convincingly that even you forget it's not real. I used to wake up every morning thinking I had everything I ever wanted: the husband, the child, the house with the soft gray walls, and the smell of cinnamon in autumn. On paper, we were the perfect family. People would tell me how lucky I was, okay? And I'd smile politely. I even started believing it myself, but now looking back, I see it for what it was: a well-rehearsed performance. And I was the star of the show, smiling on cue, laughing at the right moments, keeping everything polished just enough so no one would look too closely. I was good at it. It's too good. Because the truth, it was rotting beneath the surface for years. I remember little things. The way Daniel used to pull away from my touch when he thought I wasn't paying attention. Or how his phone was always face down on the counter, locked, silent. The excuses so small, so casually you almost didn't notice them until they piled up into something you couldn't ignore. And Kate, my sister. She was always there, too often, coming by just to check in, but lingering a little too long, laughing a little too hard at his jokes. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was projecting. It's because what kind of person suspects their own sister? Their own husband? What kind of woman thinks like that? But the truth is, I always knew. Somewhere deep in the quiet, protected parts of myself, I felt the lie humming beneath everything we did. It's funny how denial works. It doesn't scream at you, it whispers. It caresses your ego and tells you you're just tired. You're overthinking it. You're fine. So I pushed it down, day after day. I chose the lie over the pain, and for a while, I made it work. I smiled, I loved, I mothered. I buried my doubts so deep I forgot they existed. But you can only hold your breath for so long before something inside you starts to drown. The perfect life. It was just a set. And I was the fool keeping the curtains drawn, hoping no one would ever notice the stage was collapsing behind me. There's a moment, just one, when everything shifts. It doesn't look like much from the outside. Okay, maybe someone says the wrong thing. Maybe it's a look that lasts 1 second too long. But for me, it was the silence. It started in the small, empty spaces between words, between glances. At dinner, Daniel used to ask about my day, hold my hand across the table. But then, one night he didn't. He sat there scrolling through his phone, nodding as I spoke, but I could tell he wasn't listening. Not really. And then came the late nights at work, the quick showers right when he got home, the phone calls he took outside in the cold, said it was just business. But I knew Daniel's business, and it didn't call him at midnight. It didn't make him smile like that, like he was 17 again, falling in love for the first time. Then there was Kate, my sister, my closest friend, the one person who was supposed to know me better than anyone else. She started pulling away too, but in a different way. She was overly nice, overly helpful, showing up with wine, with flowers, with her just thought of you little gifts. But when she hugged me, her body was stiff. Her eyes darted around like she didn't want to meet mine. That's when I started paying attention. I watched them, carefully, not like a woman who suspects. It's like a woman who already knows. There was this moment burned into my memory. We were hosting a dinner party. It's just a few close friends. Kate reached for the wine and Daniel passed it to her. Their hands touched for a second too long. And when she laughed at something he said, I saw her mouth twitch like she was trying not to smile too much. That's when my heart turned to ice, right there in the middle of my own kitchen. I didn't say anything. I never did, not at first. I let it all unfold. Watched it play out like a movie I'd seen before but hoped would end differently this time. People think betrayal is loud, that it explodes into your life and demands attention. But no. Real betrayal is quiet. It walks in slowly, makes itself comfortable, and waits for you to notice. By the time you do, it's already taken everything. I saw this shift. I felt it. But I wasn't ready to confront it yet. No, I needed to be sure. And I needed a plan. Because I knew one thing for certain. If they were going to play games behind my back, they had no idea who they were dealing with. The thing. About secrets, is there like splinters? You can't always see them, but you feel them under your skin. Constant nagging. And if you ignore them long enough, they fester. That's how it felt every time Daniel smiled at me with those rehearsed eyes. Oh. Every time Kate asked me how I was. Doing and wouldn't quite meet my gaze. Was living in a performance. I was the only one who didn't know it was a tragedy. I remember the exact night I found out. Not just suspected, not questioned. Knew Daniel was asleep or pretending to be. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. Once, twice, a third time. And that's when I picked it up. I shouldn't have had to. I shouldn't have needed to. But when? Your whole world starts to shift. You don't ask for permission. You survive. I didn't have a password, but I didn't need one. He used Kate's birthday. Of course he did. The messages were short, incomplete, but not ambiguous. She suspects something. Not tonight. She's too quiet. Soon my hand was shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. My ears rang. My heartbeat echoed like a drum inside my head. There were photos, too, blurry, intimate. Not of them together, but close enough. Her in his hoodie, him outside her apartment at midnight, one of her bare shoulder in his better bed. I stared at it, frozen. Time stopped. Reality cracked, and then something inside me shifted. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't wake him up and throw the phone at his chest like a woman in a bad movie. No. I sat there in the dark, a cold blue light of the screen on my face, and I let it settle. They thought they were clever, careful. Maybe they were. Maybe they'd gotten away with it for months or longer. But that night, they made a fatal mistake. They underestimated me. You see, I'd spent my entire life forgiving people, making excuses, swallowing my instincts to keep the peace. I was the good wife, the good sister, the woman who played nice. But that version of me died the second I read those messages. And the woman who replaced her, she wasn't interested in tears. She was interested in truth and control. And if they wanted to play a game, they had no idea the rules had just changed. From that moment forward, I didn't need to guess anymore. I knew when you finally see the truth for what it is clear, cold and cruel you start planning what to do with it. People like to say the past is in the past, that we shouldn't dwell on things we can't change. Okay? But I've learned that the past doesn't stay buried. It festers. It poisons. After I discovered the truth about Daniel and Kate, I couldn't stop thinking not just about what they did, but why they did it, and why it didn't shock me the way it should have. 'Cause if I'm honest, this betrayal didn't start with them. Started long before. Started with the way. We were raised, Kate and I grew up in a house full of pretty things and ugly silences. Our mother was all appearances, nails polished, voice sweet, always smiling for the neighbors. But behind closed doors, cold, distant, sometimes cruel. Our father was worse. He had moods that filled the house like smoke thick, suffocating, inescapable. When he was angry, the world stopped spinning. And when he was gone, we learned to clean up behind him like nothing happened. Kate always competed with me. Maybe because she was younger. Maybe because I was the one who figured out how to play the game, how to please, how to disappear when needed. She was always louder, always needing attention. And I was always in the way. We weren't close, not really. We had moments of sisterhood, of course. Secrets shared in the dark. Pinky swears and midnight whispers. But even those were poisoned by rivalry. She wanted everything I had. Not because she loved it, because she hated not having it first. So when I started to really think about what Daniel and Kate did, I realized something terrifying. It wasn't just a betrayal. It was the final act in a script that had been writing itself for decades. It's a sibling rivalry that outgrew its childhood roots and became something colder, more calculated, Dot and me. I couldn't just walk away, 'cause this wasn't about a cheating husband. It wasn't about a broken marriage. It was about being played, about having your entire life orchestrated behind your back, about finally seeing the strings you didn't. No, we're pulling you. That's when obsession took hold of me. Not anger, not grief. Obsession. The kind that keeps you up at night, mapping timelines, analyzing glances, revisiting memories with new eyes. I needed to understand it. Every layer, every lie. A lot. Every quiet manipulation. And once I did, I knew what had to. Come next. You don't get to rewrite my story behind my back and expect me to play along? You want to act like I'm invisible? Like I'm weak? Then you've forgotten the one thing they taught us in that house growing up. If you want to survive, you learn how to smile with a knife behind your back. I was done surviving. It was time to take control. There's a kind of power in silence, in pretending you don't know what you know. I learned that fast. Once I had proof of their betrayal, the urge to confront them was almost unbearable. Every time I saw Daniel's face, I wanted to scream. Every time Kate texted me some empty, cheerful lie, I wanted to throw my phone across the room. But I didn't. I smiled. I nodded. I listened, 'cause I knew that confrontation would end the game. And I wasn't done playing. Instead, I started moving the pieces. Subtle things. At first, changing dinner plans at the last minute, interrupting their secret meetings with spontaneous phone calls or unexpected visits. I could hear the strain building in their voices, the cracks in their rehearsed casualness. Watching them squirm in real time was intoxicating. I left reminders for them, little breadcrumbs. A photo frame slightly shifted, pair of earrings of Kate's eye. Found under the guest bed, I placed them in the living room, right where Daniel would find them. He never said a word about it, neither did she, but they knew I knew. They just didn't know what I'd do with it. People think manipulation is dramatic shouting, threats, dramatic ultimatums. It's not. It's slow. It's measured. It's surgical. I started planting stories. Small lies that sounded like truth. I'd mentioned something Kate had told me, something she'd never actually said, just to see if Daniel would react. I'd leave receipts from places I hadn't been, dates I hadn't gone on, in the pockets of jackets. It became my own ghost haunting. The lie they built together, and they started to unravel. Daniel got paranoid. He began checking my phone, asking questions he never asked before. Suddenly concerned with my schedule, my whereabouts. The irony. I was right there in front of him, hiding in plain sight. But he had no idea what I was really doing. Kate pulled back even more. Her texts got shorter. Her visits stopped altogether. But I knew she was still watching me, still wondering how much I knew and how long she had before I exposed her. But I wasn't going to expose them. Not yet, because exposure wasn't enough. It was too clean. It's too fast. I wanted them to feel what I felt, this slow, creeping sense of dread, the fear of being found out, the anxiety that wakes you up at 3 a.m., wondering if today is the day your whole life falls apart. I didn't want revenge. Not really. I wanted to dismantle them quietly, elegantly, the same way they had tried to erase me from my own life. And the best part? They still thought they were in control. You'd think infidelity would be the worst of it. The lying, the sneaking around, sickening intimacy between two people who should have never touched, but betrayal. Real betrayal, it goes deeper. It's not just about sex or secrets. It's about intent. It was never just an affair. That was only the surface. A distraction. A veil. I didn't realize that until I dug deeper. I wish I could say I found it by accident, but I was looking. I was always looking. It started with our finances. Daniel had become unusually protective over our accounts. Passwords changed. Files moved. "Don't worry about it," he said. "It's just temporary." So I looked quietly, carefully, and what I found, it made my blood run cold. He'd opened a separate account under my name, a shell company filed with forged documents. Funds were being moved, laundered, illegal, dangerous, and Kate, she was listed as a consultant. It wasn't just an affair. They were setting me up, all that smiling, all that pretending. It wasn't guilt, it was calculation. They were building a story behind my back, slowly turning me into the villain of my own life. A woman on the verge of collapse. A wife unfit to manage her own household. It's a liability they could control or discard. And the worst part, they made it believable. They knew my patterns, my habits, my weaknesses. It's all the ways I'd learned to avoid conflict, to keep peace, to swallow my instincts. They were counting on it. I thought I'd crumble before I ever fought back. That's when something inside me snapped. Not in rage, not in desperation. It was colder than that, clearer, a kind of mental stillness. I hadn't felt in years because now I understood. This wasn't about a broken heart. This was about war. They wanted to destroy me quietly with smiles and contracts and digital paper. Trails. But I had something they didn't. I had time, patience, and the power of pretending to still be blind. From that moment on, I stopped being the wounded wife. I became something else. A mirror, maybe. Something that looked like love but wasn't. Something that waited in the dark and watched. If they wanted to build a world where I was the fool, the criminal, the obstacle, fine. I'd let them finish the story, but I'd be the one writing the ending. And when I was done, they wouldn't even recognize their own lies. Something almost sacred about planning revenge. People think it's messy, emotional, reckless, loud. But no, true revenge, it's quiet, measured. It's strategy disguised as surrender. After I discovered what they were doing, how they were rewriting my life into a criminal narrative, I knew I couldn't just fight back. I had to become something they didn't believe I was capable of. I had to be smarter, colder, invisible, so I played my part. I let Daniel believe I was unraveling. I forgot appointments, acted distracted. I even staged a few emotional outbursts. Nothing dramatic, just enough for him to start logging notes, documenting my decline. I gave them the story they wanted, Kay, and while they built their case against me, I was building something better, a trap. I began gathering everything. I traced the fake accounts, took screenshots, downloaded emails they thought I couldn't access. I even recorded conversations. It wasn't hard. People get careless when they think you're broken. I created a timeline, a map of their lies. Financial statements, surveillance footage, digital trails. Spoke to lawyers under the guise of estate planning. I reached out to tech specialists through anonymous sources. I built a dossier so detailed, so airtight, it could destroy them. In court or in public. But that wasn't enough for me, because this wasn't about punishment. It was about exposure. I didn't want them arrested quietly, tucked away where no one would hear the full story. I wanted the world to know. I wanted the people who thought we were the perfect couple, the perfect family, to see the rot under the paint. So I started, laying the groundwork for a very public collapse. I reconnected with old friends, reporters, community contacts. I hosted dinners, smiled through wine-stained teeth, and let the cracks show just enough. Because when the time came, they needed to believe I'd finally snapped. They needed to expect the breakdown, not the plan. I watched them lie to my face every day. Watched them cover their tracks, make whispered calls, exchange knowing glances they thought I didn't catch. Kay, and the entire time, I was 3 steps ahead. That's the thing about betrayal. Kay teaches you how to think like a villain. How to? Stop reacting and start designing. By the time they'd realize what I'd done, it would already be over. The noose tied, the camera rolling, story rewritten in my own hand. And I would smile gently, like I always did, because revenge, when done right, isn't a scream. It's a whisper. It's amazing how much you can say without ever raising your voice. People always assume confrontation is about shouting, about throwing things and slamming doors. But that's not how I wanted this to go. No. I wanted them to feel it, slowly, deeply. I wanted it to sink into their bones like cold water the first time I looked Daniel in the eyes after everything. Really looked at him. I smiled. I asked how his day was. Poured him a drink. Sat across from him at the dinner table like nothing had changed. And when he started talking about a client emergency, I tilted my head and asked him, was it Kate again? His face didn't crack, not right away, but I saw the flicker, a pause, the split-second moment of panic behind his calm. That was all I needed. He recovered, of course. Lead said she was helping with a project, but they were just friends. And I just laughed, not because it was funny, but because the performance was so insulting. Still thought he had the upper hand, but I kept it subtle. I planted little seeds every day. A casual mention of a name he didn't think I knew. Quiet remark about finances that made him sweat. I let my questions drift in like fog, never sharp, never obvious. Just disorienting enough to keep him off balance. Kate was harder to reach. She'd stopped coming around, but she couldn't resist answering my texts. I started sending her things, photos. From childhood, inside jokes, sweet little memories. Guilt is a useful tool when you know how to use it. It corrodes from the inside out. Eventually, I invited her to lunch. She hesitated, of course, but she came. I hugged her like I always did, and when I pulled away, I held on just a little longer, looked her straight in the eye and said, "You've been so distant lately. I miss you. You and Daniel both." She froze. She smiled, but her body stiffened, like she'd just heard a gun cock. That's when I knew they were both scared. The confrontation didn't happen in one blow. It happened in a series of whispers, of pauses, of carefully timed glances. I watched their nerves fray. Watched Daniel get shorter with his words, more paranoid with his phone. Watched Kate become a shadow of the confident woman who once laughed. In my kitchen. And through it all I was calm, cold, controlled, because I wasn't confronting them to demand an apology. I didn't want remorse. I wanted the unraveling. I wanted them to feel what I felt for months: uncertainty, paranoia, fear, annoy. The slow, sinking dread of knowing something is coming and not being able to stop it. They didn't realize that every word I spoke, every look I gave, was part of the design. They thought they were lying to me. They didn't know I was leading them into a truth they'd never escape. I always thought revenge was a solitary thing. Something done in the quiet, in the dark, by a woman alone with her thoughts and a plan. But I was wrong. Turns out, betrayal leaves a trail sometimes. That trail leads you straight to someone who's been carrying their own grudge. Luke, Daniel's brother, the family outcast. The one they never talked about. He'd moved away. Years ago, after a fallout no one ever explained. I only met him twice. Once at our wedding, briefly. Awkwardly, and again at a Christmas party where he showed up uninvited and left before dessert. But there was always something about him that lingered. A tension. A truth unsaid. I didn't reach out to him by accident. Found a reason. A question about a family trust. A vague inquiry about a shared property. Something benign. But when we met, he cut straight through the pretense. "He's doing it again, isn't he?" he asked. No hesitation. Just the truth. That's when I learned I wasn't Daniel's first victim. Luke told me stories about their childhood, about lies Daniel told that tore people apart, about how Kate had been circling the family for years, inserting herself where she didn't belong. There was history, their long, bitter history. And when I told Luke what they were doing to me, I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen in a long-time alignment. We weren't allies because we liked each other. We were allies because we had a common enemy. He had skills. I didn't. Access information, connections. He knew how to dig without being seen, how to make people talk, how to make them disappear, and he offered it freely. Not because he cared about me, but because he wanted Daniel to fall land this time, stay down. I let him in carefully. I never showed all my cards, but we began to build something together, a deeper trap, one with more teeth. With Luke's help, we uncovered more of their scheme: falsified records, offshore transfers, illegal surveillance. We found a witness, someone. Kate paid off. And most importantly, we found leverage. People talk, especially when they think they're safe, especially when they underestimate you. And Daniel, Kate, they'd been arrogant for too long. I still worked alone in many ways. Now I had eyes in places I never could have reached. And when Luke said they'll never see it coming, I believed him. For the first time, I didn't feel like prey anymore. I felt like the storm on the horizon. It's a thing they never thought would arrive. And the beauty of it all. I wasn't just coming for them anymore. I was going to bury their entire legacy. Carefully, quietly, and with help. I used to believe family meant safety. That no matter how messy life got, no matter how many mistakes we made, the people closest to you were supposed to protect you, forgive you, love you. But that's the thing about belief. Just another story we tell ourselves to feel less alone. And when that story breaks, everything unravels. I look at my wedding photos now and feel nothing, just paper ghosts. Smiles stretched over secrets, a white dress, and a lie. Daniel's arm around me like I was his prize when really, I was his project, something to build. Up so he could control it, break it, profit from it. And Kate, my sister, my blood. There were nights when we were kids, she'd sneak into my room just to sleep beside me during thunderstorms. She used to cry when I left for college. She wrote me letters, real ones, with her messy handwriting, little hearts in the margins. Now, I can't read them without wondering when exactly she started hating me. Was it jealousy? Was it survival? Was it something uglier? I don't know, but I stopped asking a long time ago, because the answer didn't matter anymore. All that mattered was the damage she helped create. She stood by and watched my life collapse and helped push it over the edge, all while calling me sis. That's when I realized blood doesn't bind people, trauma does. Secrets do. Lies hold families together better than love ever could. I started seeing everyone differently. Friends, neighbors, even my own child. I watched their faces more closely, measured their words, looked for cracks in everything. Paranoia, you'd call it. Call it clarity. When you learn that the people closest to you are capable of destroying you. And smiling while they do it. How? Do you ever let anyone in again? Revenge didn't just change how I acted. It changed how I loved. It made affection feel like currency. Trust like a loaded weapon. Every touch, every conversation, every confession became a move on the board. And I never made the same move twice. I didn't want to feel anymore. Feelings get you betrayed. Logic, control, distance. That's where safety lives. And if you have to sacrifice love for power, then so be it. The people I trusted most turned me into a monster. Or maybe they revealed the one I always had inside. Me. And the truth is, I don't miss the old me. She was soft, blind, easy to manipulate. This version, she sees everything, and she forgets nothing. The bonds I once thought sacred, they were just shackles. And I was finally learning how to break every single one. There were nights I couldn't sleep, not because of guilt. Guilt died long ago, but because of noise. The noise inside my head. The looping thoughts. The questions. What if I missed something? What if they knew what I was planning? What if the trap turned back on me? You don't spend months pretending to be broken, spinning webs of deception without it costing you something. You start losing track of what's real. What's part of the performance and what's actually. Sometimes I'd stare into the mirror for so long, I wouldn't recognize the woman looking back. She wore my face, but her eyes didn't blink the same. I stopped trusting anyone, including myself. I'd be in the middle of folding laundry or driving to the store and suddenly wonder, what if I imagined it all? What if the messages were misinterpreted? What if they weren't setting me up and I'd built this entire plan? Out of shadows. Madness doesn't arrive with a warning. It creeps in, quiet, soft, like a friend. There were moments I stood over Daniel while he slept and just listened to his breathing, to the nothing between us. I'd wonder how easy it would be to end it right there. A pillow? A quiet slip. But I never did, 'cause I wasn't a killer. At least, not in the way the world defines it. I killed trust, killed innocence, killed the version of myself who would have let this go. One night, I almost burned it all. The photos, the files, the proof. I was holding a match, crying in the middle of the living room like a lunatic. Because I was tired. Tired of the pretending. Tired of the plan. Tired of being alone in a world I built just to survive. I wanted it to end, not the revenge, but the waiting. The weight of it. But I didn't light the match. I put it out with my fingertips. Its pain grounded me. I realized then this wasn't about healing. It wasn't even about justice. This was about control, about taking back the pen and rewriting. The ending they tried to give me, was I losing my mind? Maybe, but I no longer feared that. Because madness, I'd learned, is just another word for freedom. The world only calls a woman crazy when she stops obeying the script. And I had burned the script a long time ago, so I dried my tears. I reopened the files, reminded myself of every lie, every stolen moment, every scar they gave me. Because if I was losing my mind, at least I would lose it on my terms. You never forget the moment it all begins to fall apart, especially when you're the one pulling the strings. Oh, those quiet months of planning, pretending, pushing pieces into place. And then suddenly, the dominoes start to fall. You don't stop them. You just watch. I chose a Tuesday. No reason, really. It's just a perfectly ordinary day to ruin someone's life. It started with a meeting. A business deal. Daniel had arranged one of his secret little power plays. But what he didn't know was that I'd been in contact with the very same partners, quietly, through Luke and the documents Daniel brought to the table that day. Altered by me, he walked into that room expecting a win. Instead, he walked into a fraud investigation. Then came Kate. She was at her office when the anonymous package arrived. Inside, a USB drive containing everything. The fake accounts, the paper trail, the screenshots of her messages to Daniel, even a voice recording her, telling him they needed to move faster before Emma caught on. Her assistant delivered it to her desk in front of half the department. I planned it that way. Their reactions were almost identical. Denial, confusion, panic, but not surprise. That's how I knew I'd done it right. They knew what they'd done. They just didn't know it would come back like this. By that afternoon, their phones were ringing, their emails flagged, their reputations, everything they'd built on lies crumbling in real time. I stayed quiet, calm. I didn't gloat. I didn't post. I didn't even look them in the eye when Daniel finally came home that night, pale and sweating, asking if I knew what was happening. I just handed him a glass of wine and said, "You should get some rest." The next morning, he was gone, attacked, a bag, and left without a word. Kate disappeared a few hours later. But it didn't matter, because the damage was done. The investigation was public now. The media was sniffing. People were talking. I had made sure their story would be told and not the version they'd written for me. The irony. No one suspected. Me, because I had played the role so well. The faithful wife, the wounded sister, the one left behind. And that's exactly what I wanted them to believe. By the time anyone asked the right questions, the evidence was sealed, the narrative locked, and the truth buried just deep enough to protect me, but close enough to keep them haunted. Revenge wasn't the end. It was the reveal. And in that final act, as the curtains fell, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. People assume that when revenge is done, when the house burns, the enemies fall, the secrets collapse beneath the weight of truth. You get peace, closure. That's what the movies tell us. The hero walks away, triumphant, cleansed, but real. Life doesn't come with clean endings, just quiet ones. And silence, I've learned, is where the questions live. After the dust settled, after Daniel vanished and Kate's life crumbled under the weight of exposure, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't cry, I didn't smile, I just existed. Like I'd finally stepped off a stage I didn't realize I'd been performing on my whole life. And in that stillness, one thought echoed louder than the rest. What have I become? Was it justice? To take back the narrative, to destroy the ones who tried to destroy me, to expose the lies, punish the betrayal, burn the rot at its roots, or was it madness? Was I just another villain clever enough to hide her crimes behind elegance, calm enough to convince herself it was all deserved? Some nights, I replay everything. Not because I regret it, no, never regret, but because I want to understand the line I crossed. It's the exact moment where survival turned into obsession, where defense became attack. When did I stop responding to their cruelty and start orchestrating my own? I still go to the market, smile at neighbors, say thank you. I keep the garden alive, just like I always did. But I know something's changed in me. The way I look at people, the way I anticipate betrayal now, before it even shows up. There's a sharpness in me that wasn't there before. Hunger I can't name. Daniel and Kate were punished, yes. But what did I lose in the process? My peace, my soul. Or were those things already gone, and I only realized it after the curtain fell? The world thinks I survived something horrific, that I overcame it with grace, that I'm brave. But the truth, I don't feel brave. I feel haunted, not by them, by me, by what I proved I could do, by how easily I could become exactly what I hated most. So I ask myself the question every night before bed. Was it justice or insanity? And I still don't know the answer. I thought there would be a moment, a click, a release. Like all the, wait, I've been carrying wood suddenly disappear. Okay? And I'd feel whole again, clean. But when the smoke cleared and they were both gone, Daniel humiliated, Kate arrest, I felt nothing, no relief, no triumph. Just a quiet ache where the fury used to be. Revenge gives you purpose. It gives you clarity. When you're in it, every move matters. Every breath has weight. You wake up knowing what the day is for. But once it's over, that's when the silence becomes unbearable. The house feels bigger now, emptier. Not just because Daniel is gone, but because the illusion is too. The portrait of our perfect life, the story I tried to sell myself and everyone else sits, shattered. All that's left is a woman in a quiet room, surrounded by the ghosts of who she used to be. People still call, they check in. They say they're sorry, even though they don't really know why. But their voices sound far away, like they're speaking to someone on the other side of a wall. Because they are. I built that wall, brick by brick. And now, I don't know how to come out from behind it. Even Luke is gone. We said goodbye without saying much. Our alliance was always temporary, two damaged people bound by shared rage. When it ended, so did whatever fragile bond we had. Okay, and that's fine. It had to be. This ending was always going to be mine alone. The truth is, I didn't just take. them down. I dismantled myself in the process, piece by piece. I had to become someone else to survive it, to outthink them, outmaneuver them, destroy them. And that version of me? She doesn't know how to come back to the surface. I miss my son's laugh. I miss sleeping without dreams. I miss mornings that didn't feel like calculations. But most of all, I miss the version of me who believed in love, who believed in loyalty. She was naive, yes, but she was whole. Now, all that's left is clarity, okay? And clarity is a lonely thing. People say time heals everything, but they're wrong. Time just lets you learn how to carry it differently. And I carry this not as a badge, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Even when you win. Some wars are designed to leave you with nothing. I got my revenge. I got my justice, and still, somehow, I lost. They say the truth sets you free. But I've learned that real freedom doesn't come from truth. It comes from power. And to get power, sometimes you have to twist the truth until it bleeds. Everyone thinks this started the night I found those messages. That moment by the glow of Daniel's phone, the betrayal flooding my chest like ice water. But that wasn't the beginning. Not even close. The truth is, I knew long before that. I knew they were circling each other. I knew Kate wanted what? I had, and Daniel was weak enough to give it to her. I knew. I saw it. I felt it. Because what no one tells you is that revenge isn't about the moment you break. It's about the moment you choose to let it build, to let the anger simmer instead of boil, to become patient, strategic, surgical. I didn't stumble onto their secret. I walked right into it. I let them think they were clever, that they were sneaking around under my nose, that I was blind. I smiled when Kate leaned in too close. I stayed silent when Daniel's stories didn't add up. I played my role like a good little wife because I was writing a better one behind their backs. The financial documents, I'd seen the shell companies months earlier. I didn't report them. I added to them, gave them just enough rope to hang themselves. The messages, I let them stay on his phone. I even moved a few into a folder I knew he forgot to delete. Every breadcrumb they thought they left, I placed it there. Even Luke, yes, I reached out to him, but not out of desperation, out of design. I knew his history. I knew he'd want blood just as much as I did. He thought we were equals in this. He was wrong. Everyone was. I didn't react to the betrayal. I anticipated it, and I shaped it. I fed it. I let it grow, so that when I finally set fire to it all, the flames would be seen from every corner of the life they tried to erase me from. So now, if I sit here in my quiet house, with the sun setting just beyond the kitchen window, I ask myself one final question. Did I become a monster? Or did I become free? Sometimes. I still smile at the thought that they believed I never saw it coming. But I did. I saw everything, and I made sure, in the end, that they never saw me coming.